Undercover boss orders pulled pork, freezes when cook says manager locks meat after midnight. Evan Miles had eaten at every one of his 47 barbecue restaurants across the country. He'd shaken hands with mayors, posed for magazine covers, and built an empire from a single food cart. But tonight, at 12:43 a.m., standing in the fluorescent glare of his downtown Chicago location, he was just another tired customer in a borrowed jacket that smelled like cigarettes. The disguise had been his head of operations idea. Fake glasses. A baseball cap pulled low. 3 days of stubble he'd carefully maintained. The works. Corporate had been receiving complaints about this specific branch, nothing concrete, just whispers. Late-night customers mentioning, limited menus, and staff seeming on edge. Revenue reports showed weird patterns too. Meat inventory didn't match sales figures. Something was off. Evan approached the counter, where a young man with exhausted eyes stood wiping down surfaces that already looked clean. His name tag read Rico, in faded letters. "Hey man," Evan said, keeping his voice casual. "Can I get the pulled pork plate? Extra sauce?" Rico's hand stopped mid-wipe. His eyes darted toward the kitchen, then back to Evan. For just a second, maybe less, Evan saw something that didn't belong on an employee's face when taking a simple order. Fear. Rico's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Sorry, we can't serve that right now." Evan blinked. The menu board behind Rico literally glowed with a picture of pulled pork, labeled as their signature dish. Available 24/7, it said in bold letters. "Can't serve it?" Evan kept his tone friendly, curious. "Is the smoker broken or something?" "No, sir. It's just..." Rico glanced over his shoulder again. The kitchen was empty except for another worker visible through the window, headphones in, scrubbing a grill. "Manager locks the meat after midnight. Policy." The words hit Evan like a slap. Locks the meat? He'd written the operations manual himself. Every word. Every procedure. There was no policy, zero, none, about locking away inventory during operating hours. The whole point of being open 24/7 was that customers could order anything, anytime. "That's a new policy?" Evan asked carefully. Rico's jaw tightened. "Been that way for a while here. Here. Not at other locations. Just here." Evan studied the young man's face. Rico couldn't have been older than 25, with the kind of weariness that came from too many double shifts and not enough sleep. But beneath the exhaustion was something else. The way he stood, shoulders slightly hunched. The way his eyes kept checking the kitchen entrance. The way his fingers gripped that dirty rag like a lifeline. This wasn't just about weird policies. "All right," Evan said slowly. "What can you serve me?" "Chicken. Ribs. Briskets out too." Rico's voice remained flat, mechanical. Like he'd given this speech before. Many times before. Evan ordered chicken, watching Rico's hands shake slightly as he punched buttons on the register. The price came up, $14.50. Evan paid cash, and as Rico counted change, Evan noticed something that made his stomach turn. Bruises. Dark purple marks circling Rico's left wrist, barely visible beneath his sleeve as it rode up. "You okay?" Evan asked quietly. Rico's hand snapped back, tugging the sleeve down. "Fine. Just slipped on some grease yesterday." Clumsy, the explanation came too fast, too rehearsed. Before Evan could respond, a door in the back slammed open. Heavy footsteps approached. A man emerged from the kitchen, tall, mid-30s, with slicked back hair and the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. His manager's badge read, Trevor Nash. "Everything good out here, Rico?" Trevor's voice was friendly, but his eyes were cold as they scanned Evan up and down. "Yes, sir. Just taking this gentleman's order." "Excellent." Trevor moved behind the counter, positioning himself between Rico and Evan. "Sorry for any confusion, sir. We run a tight ship on night shift. Sometimes menu items run low, you know how it is." Evan nodded slowly. "Sure. No problem." But it was a problem. A massive problem. Because Trevor was lying. Evan had checked the inventory reports that morning. This location had received a meat delivery just yesterday, over 200 pounds of premium pulled pork. Enough to last a week minimum. So where was it? Trevor's smile widened. Your order will be right up. Rico, get this gentleman his chicken. Extra sauce, wasn't it? Yes, sir. As Rico hurried toward the kitchen, Trevor leaned against the counter, still watching Evan with that unsettling smile. You visiting from out of town? Don't see many new faces this time of night. Just passing through. Evan lied. Work weird hours. Don't we all? Trevor chuckled, but his eyes never left Evan's face. Like he was memorizing it. Well, enjoy your meal. And hey, next time you come in, try to make it before midnight. Better selection. The words sounded casual. Almost helpful. But the underlying message was clear, don't come back after midnight. Which made Evan want to do exactly that. Rico returned with the chicken plate, perfectly cooked, sauce drizzled just right, exactly how Evan had trained his staff to present it. The food wasn't the problem. The system wasn't broken. But something in this restaurant was very, very wrong. Evan took his food to a corner booth, the one with a clear view of both the counter and the kitchen entrance. He ate slowly, watching. Trevor disappeared into the back after a few minutes. Rico worked alone, serving 2 other customers who came and went. Both ordered chicken. Neither asked about pulled pork. At 1:15 a.m., Trevor emerged again, this time carrying 2 large trash bags toward the back exit. Nothing unusual about that, except Trevor was the manager. Managers didn't typically run trash. That was exactly the kind of task they delegated. Evan's instincts, honed from years of building his business from nothing, screamed that he was watching something important. Something deliberate. He finished his meal, threw away his trash, and headed for the door. But as he pushed it open, he heard it, Rico's voice, quiet but strained, coming from somewhere near the alley side of the building. I can't keep doing this. Someone's going to notice. Evan froze. Another voice responded, deeper. Trevor's. Nobody notices. Nobody cares. You want to keep this job, you keep your mouth shut. Understand? Silence. I said, do you understand? Yes, sir. Evan's hand tightened on the door handle. Every instinct told him to march back there right now, to confront whatever was happening. But he was one man, in disguise, with no backup and no concrete evidence of anything except a weird policy and an intimidated employee. He needed more. He needed proof. So Evan Miles, CEO of a $50 million restaurant empire, walked out into the cold Chicago night and made a decision. He was coming back tomorrow. And he was going to find out exactly what Trevor Nash was hiding. Evan showed up for his second shift at 10:30 p.m., dressed in the same borrowed jacket and cap. Trevor had texted him earlier. Apparently he'd filled out enough of the fake application that he was now, officially, on the night crew roster. The irony wasn't lost on Evan. He was being hired to work at his own restaurant. Trevor greeted him with that same plastic smile. Welcome back. Rico will show you the ropes tonight. Basic stuff, dishes, trash runs, whatever needs doing. Rico appeared from the kitchen, looking even more exhausted than the night before. When he saw Evan, something flickered in his eyes. Relief? Or maybe just recognition of another person stuck in the same nightmare. Come on, Rico said quietly. I'll show you where everything is. They worked in relative silence for the first hour. Evan washed dishes while Rico prepped for the late-night rush that never really came. Only 7 customers between 11 and midnight. The restaurant felt wrong, like a stage set that looked perfect but had nothing real behind it. At 11:47 p.m., Trevor emerged from his office carrying a ring of keys. He walked straight to a reinforced door Evan had noticed earlier, the one marked Cold Storage, Authorized Personnel Only. Evan watched as Trevor unlocked it, disappeared inside for 30 seconds, then emerged and locked it again. He pocketed the keys and headed back to his office without a word to either of them. What's he doing? Evan asked, keeping his voice low. Rico's hand stopped moving. He stared at the prep station. Locking it. Locking what? Everything. Rico's voice was barely audible. The pulled pork. The premium brisket. The special rubs. After midnight, it's all locked. We can't access it even if customers ask. Evan felt anger building in his chest. That's insane. We're supposed to be open 24/7 with full menu. I know. Rico finally looked up, and Evan saw the defeat in his eyes. But that's how it is here. How long has this been going on? Rico hesitated, glancing toward Trevor's office. 8 months. Maybe 9-inch. 9 months. Nearly a year of whatever scheme Trevor was running, right under corporate's nose. Right under Evan's nose. At 12:30 a.m., Trevor left through the back door, calling over his shoulder that he was checking inventory in the storage unit. The moment his car pulled away, Rico's entire body seemed to exhale. Hey, Evan said carefully. You want to tell me what's really going on here? Rico shook his head quickly. I can't. I need this job. I get that, but… No, you don't. Rico's voice cracked. You just started. You don't know how he operates. Before Evan could respond, Rico grabbed 2 trash bags. Come on. Trash run. We need to do it before he gets back. They pushed through the back door into the alley. The November air bit at Evan's face, cold and sharp. Rico walked quickly toward the dumpster, his breath creating small clouds in the darkness. Evan followed, trying to figure out how to get Rico to trust him. But Rico beat him to it. You seem like a decent guy, Rico said suddenly, his back still turned. So I'm going to tell you something. Find another job. Don't come back after tonight. Why? Rico finally turned around. In the harsh glow of the security light, Evan could see his face clearly. The exhaustion. The fear. And something else, shame. Because Trevor doesn't just lock the meat. Rico's voice trembled. He takes it. Sells it. And anyone who asks questions either gets fired or… He touched his wrist unconsciously, right where the bruises were. Evan's blood ran cold. He hurt you. He demonstrated proper trash disposal technique that ended with me against a wall. Rico's laugh was bitter. But officially? I slipped on grease. That's what the incident report says. That's what I signed. You could report him. Corporate would. Corporate doesn't care. Rico's voice rose, then dropped again quickly. 2 people before you tried to report him. Both got fired for performance issues, both got blacklisted from every other branch in the region. Trevor has connections in corporate. I don't know who, but he does. He's untouchable. Evan's mind raced. Connections in corporate? That was impossible. Unless… Before he could process it, headlights swept across the alley. Trevor's car. He's back early. Rico hissed. Don't say anything. Don't even look at him wrong. They quickly finished with the trash and headed back inside. Trevor was already in the kitchen, checking stations with a clipboard. When he saw them, his eyes narrowed. Took you both to take out trash? I was showing him the procedure, sir, Rico said smoothly. Trevor stepped closer to Evan, studying his face. You're awfully quiet for someone new. Most people ask more questions. Evan met his gaze steadily. Just trying to do the job right. Good, Trevor's smile returned, but it was predatory. Because people who cause problems here don't last long. And I'd hate to see you become a problem. The threat hung in the air between them. Evan nodded slowly, playing the intimidated new hire. Inside, his resolve hardened into something unbreakable. Trevor Nash had been stealing from him. Hurting his employees. Running a criminal operation inside Evan's own restaurant. And he thought he was untouchable. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Evan didn't go home after his shift ended at 6 a.m. Instead, he sat in his rental car 3 blocks away, drinking cold coffee and watching the restaurant through binoculars. He texted his CO that he was following a lead and would be unreachable. She knew better than to ask questions. Trevor's car sat in the back lot. Through the windows, Evan could see him moving around inside, doing what appeared to be normal manager duties. But Evan had learned long ago that the best lies were wrapped in layers of normal. At 7:15 a.m., Trevor finally left. Evan waited 20 minutes, then drove to a hotel 6 blocks away. He showered, changed, and tried to sleep. His mind wouldn't shut off. Rico's bruised wrist. Trevor's predatory smile. 9 months of theft. And that comment about corporate connections. Evan pulled out his laptop and started digging through files. Personnel records. Communications logs. Financial audits. If Trevor had someone protecting him in corporate, there would be traces. There always were. He found nothing obvious. But that meant nothing. Some people were smart about covering tracks. At 9 p.m., Evan was back in his rental car, parked in a different spot with a clear view of the restaurant's rear entrance. He'd called the restaurant earlier, confirming Trevor was working the night shift again. This time, Evan wasn't going inside. He was watching from outside. The night shift started normally. Evan saw Rico arrive at 10 p.m., shoulders hunched against the cold. Another worker came at 10:30. Customers trickled in through the front. Then, at 11:47 p.m., Evan saw Trevor's routine repeat. Through the windows, he watched Trevor walk to that reinforced door with his keys. Lock it. Return to his office. At 12:35 a.m., things got interesting. Trevor emerged from the back door carrying a large cooler, the expensive kind with heavy-duty insulation and reinforced handles. The kind he'd use for transporting premium meat that needed to stay cold. Evan sat up straighter, raising his phone to record. Trevor walked to his car, popped the trunk, and loaded the cooler inside. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Evan couldn't hear the words, but the body language was clear. Quick conversation. Confirmation of something. 5 minutes later, a black cargo van pulled into the lot. Evan zoomed in with his phone camera, capturing the license plate. The van had no company markings, no logos. Just flat black paint and tinted windows. A man stepped out, muscular, early 40s, with a shaved head and expensive-looking jacket. He moved with the confidence of someone who did this regularly. Trevor opened his trunk. The two men spoke briefly, then Trevor handed over the cooler. The bald man inspected it, nodded, and handed Trevor what looked like a thick envelope. Cash. Had to be. The exchange took less than 3 minutes. Professional. Practiced. This wasn't their first transaction. The van drove away, heading west toward the nightlife district. Trevor pocketed the envelope, looked around the empty parking lot, and went back inside. Evan's hands shook with rage as he reviewed the footage. Crystal clear. Trevor loading a cooler. Mystery man paying him. All caught on camera. But Evan needed more. He needed to know where that meat was going. What it was being used for. So he did something probably stupid. He followed the van. Traffic was light this time of night, making it easier to keep the van in sight without getting too close. They headed west on Madison, then south on Halsted, entering the warehouse district that had recently been rezoned for food vendors and night markets. The area was alive despite the hour. Food trucks lined the streets, their generators humming, serving Chicago's night owls and clubgoers. Music thumped from nearby bars. Groups of people moved between vendors, laughing and eating. The van pulled into an alley behind a row of trucks. Evan parked on the street, grabbed his phone, and walked casually toward the scene. He spotted the van immediately. The bald man was unloading the cooler, carrying it to a food truck that stood out from the others. Bigger. Fancier. A custom-built operation with chrome accents and LED lighting. The sign read, Smoke Syndicate, in bold letters. Below it, Chicago's best barbecue, no compromises. Evan's jaw clenched. They were using his stolen meat to run a competing business. He joined the line of customers, keeping his head down. When he reached the window, a young woman with bright purple hair greeted him cheerfully. "What can I get you, hon?" What's good? Pulled pork's our specialty. Secret recipe, premium quality. Best in the city. I'll take that. While she prepared his order, Evan studied the operation. Professional setup. Good branding. Prices slightly lower than his restaurants. And the food smelled incredible, because it was his food, made with his recipes, his premium ingredients. The woman handed him a plate. That'll be $12. Evan paid, took a bite, and his suspicions were confirmed. Same smoke profile. Same rub blend. Same pull and texture. This wasn't similar to his pulled pork. It was identical. This is amazing, Evan said honestly. Where do you guys source your meat? The woman grinned. That's the secret, babe. Our supplier hooks us up with restaurant-quality stuff for cheap. Some kind of bulk deal. Lucky us, right? Right, Evan said slowly. Lucky you? He ate his food, took photos of the truck, collected his receipt, and walked back to his car. Now he had the full picture. Trevor was stealing premium inventory, selling it to this food truck operation, and pocketing the profits. All while intimidating his staff into silence. But Evan still needed the final piece. He needed to catch Trevor in the act, with witnesses and undeniable proof. And he needed Rico's full story. Evan spent the next day doing something he rarely did anymore, actual detective work. He called in a favor from a private investigator he'd used during a franchise dispute 3 years ago. Within 6 hours, he had a full workup on the Smoke Syndicate food truck. Owner Dax Morrison. Age 38. 2 prior businesses, both failed. A catering company that went bankrupt and a restaurant that closed after health code violations. But Smoke Syndicate? It was thriving. 5-star reviews online. Featured in local food blogs. Lines every night. All built on stolen goods. The investigator also pulled financial records. Smoke Syndicate's meat costs were suspiciously low, about 40% of what they should be for the quality they claimed to serve. And their supplier? Listed as Direct Source LLC, a shell company registered to a P.O. box. Trevor's shell company. Had to be. But Evan needed more than paperwork. He needed to see the operation firsthand, talk to Dax, understand the full scope of what he was dealing with. So that night, at 11 p.m., Evan returned to the night market district. The scene was even busier than before, a Friday night crowd spilling between food trucks, drinks in hand, music pulsing from nearby clubs. Smoke Syndicate had the longest line, at least 20 people deep. Evan joined the queue, this time wearing different clothes, a nicer jacket, designer jeans, looking more like a foodie than a worker. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through the truck's Instagram. Over 50,000 followers. Posts bragging about secret suppliers and insider connections that let them serve premium barbecue at street prices. The audacity was breathtaking. When Evan finally reached the window, a different person was working, a young guy with a nose ring and a Smoke Syndicate t-shirt. But behind him, Evan spotted someone new. A man in his late 30s with sharp features and calculating eyes, wearing an expensive watch and even more expensive boots. Dax Morrison? Had to be. What'll it be? The worker asked. Pulled pork plate. And actually, Evan leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. My girlfriend and I are getting married next month. We're looking for a caterer. This is the best barbecue I've ever had. Any chance I could talk to the owner about catering? The worker glanced back. Dax? Got a potential catering client. Dax approached the window, his smile smooth and practiced. The smile of a salesman who'd learned to hide the shark underneath. Hey there! Congratulations on the wedding. Yeah, we do catering. How many people? About 80. Evan lied smoothly. But I've got to be honest, I'm picky about quality. I've eaten at every barbecue place in Chicago, including that chain Miles Barbecue. Your pulled pork is better than theirs. How do you manage that? Dax's smile widened. Pride. Ego. Evan had hit the right button. Man, I appreciate that. Dax said, leaning against the counter. Truth is, most restaurants get ripped off by distributors. Huge markups, middleman fees, all that. But me? I've got special suppliers. People on the inside who know quality and want to see it reach people who appreciate it, not just corporate chains trying to maximize profit. People on the inside? Evan acted impressed. Like industry connections? Exactly. Dax glanced around, then lowered his voice conspiratorially. Let's just say I know some managers at certain restaurants who'd rather see premium meat go to someone who'll treat it right, instead of watching it get wasted in corporate bureaucracy. Win-win, you know? They make extra cash, I get amazing product, customers get the best barbecue in the city. Evan felt his anger crystallize into something cold and sharp. Dax wasn't just buying stolen goods. He was justifying it. Rationalizing theft as some kind of noble redistribution. That's brilliant, Evan said, maintaining his cover. So you're saying you can guarantee the same quality for catering? Absolutely. Same suppliers, same standards. Dax pulled out a business card. Give me a call next week. We'll talk numbers, do a tasting, the whole thing. I promise you, your wedding guests will be talking about this food for years. Evan took the card, studying it. Professional design. Embossed logo. Everything about Smoke Syndicate screamed success. Success built on someone else's loss. I'll definitely call, Evan said. Oh, one more thing. You mentioned getting product from restaurant managers. Is that, legal? Dax's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Caution. It's surplus product that would otherwise go to waste. Perfectly legal. Restaurant business has a lot of waste, and we're just part of the solution. Right. Makes sense. Evan paid for his food, pulled pork plate, extra sauce, and walked away. He found a bench near the edge of the market and ate slowly, thinking. Dax was smooth. Too smooth. He'd probably convinced himself that what he was doing wasn't really theft. Just creative sourcing, the kind of mental gymnastics that let people sleep at night after doing terrible things. But the food? Still incredible. Because it was Evan's recipe, made with Evan's premium ingredients, prepared exactly according to Evan's standards. Just sold by criminals instead of his own staff. Evan pulled out his phone and texted his investigator. Need surveillance on Smoke Syndicate food truck. Focus on deliveries and supply chain. Authorization for expenses approved. Then he texted his COO. Need legal team on standby. Will explain soon. Also need corporate audit of Chicago downtown location, full inventory review, past 12 months. Finally, he opened his contacts and found Rico's number, pulled from the staff directory. He typed, "This is the new guy from work. Need to talk. Not about quitting. About fixing this. Can we meet?" He almost hit send, then stopped. Too risky. If Trevor saw that message somehow, Rico would pay the price. Evan deleted the text. No. He'd have to do this face to face. Tomorrow night, he'd return to the restaurant. And this time, he'd get Rico to tell him everything. Every detail. Every threat. Every piece of evidence needed to bring Trevor down. The game was almost over. Trevor just didn't know it yet. Evan arrived at the restaurant at 10 p.m. Saturday, expecting to find Rico on the night shift. Instead, he found chaos. The dining area was packed, unusual for a Saturday night at this location. Customers waited impatiently at the counter while a single worker, the guy with headphones from Evan's first night, struggled to keep up. His name tag read Marcus. "Where's Rico?" Evan asked, moving behind the counter without waiting for permission. Marcus looked at him with exhausted gratitude. "Back kitchen. Trevor made him pull a double. He's been here since 6 this morning." "This morning? That's 16 hours. Yeah, well. Someone called in sick, and guess who gets punished for it?" Marcus's voice was bitter. "Take register too. I'll get the orders out." Evan wanted to march into that kitchen immediately, but customers were staring. He took his position and started working, moving through orders with the efficiency of someone who'd done every job in a restaurant at least 1,000 times. An hour passed. Then 2. The rush finally died down around midnight. "I'm taking my break," Evan told Marcus. "Cover for me?" "Sure, man. You're good at this. Where'd you work before?" "Around," Evan said vaguely, heading toward the kitchen. He found Rico in the back prep area, sitting on an overturned bucket, head in his hands. The kid looked destroyed, physically and emotionally. His uniform was stained with grease and sauce. His hands trembled. "Rico," Evan said quietly. Rico's head snapped up. For a moment, fear flashed across his face, then recognition, then something close to relief. "You shouldn't be back here," Rico said, his voice hoarse. "Neither should you. Not for 16 hours straight." Evan grabbed another bucket and sat down across from him. "This is illegal, you know. Labor law violations all over the place." Rico laughed bitterly. "Yeah? Tell that to Trevor. Tell that to corporate. They don't care. I care." "Why?" Rico looked at him directly for the first time. "Why do you care? You just started. This isn't your problem." Evan chose his words carefully. "Because I've worked enough restaurants to know when something's wrong. And this is wrong. Trevor's stealing, he's hurting people, and he thinks he can get away with it because everyone's too scared to stop him. We are too scared." Rico's voice cracked. "You don't get it. I've got a kid. 3 years old. His mom's not in the picture, so it's just me. I've got rent, daycare, bills. I can't afford to lose this job. And if I get blacklisted..." He trailed off, staring at his hands. "I'm stuck." Evan felt something twist in his chest. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about a father trying to survive, trapped by a system that should have protected him. "Tell me everything," Evan said. "From the beginning. How did this start?" Rico was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the story poured out. Trevor had been manager for about a year. At first, everything seemed normal. But 9 months ago, things changed. Trevor started implementing new policies: the locked storage, restricted menu access after midnight, mandatory overtime for certain employees. Anyone who questioned it got written up for minor infractions. Then came the first firing. A cook named Jessica had noticed the inventory discrepancies. She'd gone to corporate, filed a formal complaint. 2 weeks later, she was terminated for repeated safety violations. Trevor had documented 3 incidents. Rico swore they were fabricated, and HR had sided with Trevor. Jessica couldn't find work at any other Miles barbecue location. Somehow, she'd been flagged in the system. The second firing was worse. A shift lead named Marcus, different Marcus, had caught Trevor loading meat into his car. He'd confronted Trevor directly. The next day, $200 went missing from the register during Marcus's shift. Trevor found the money in Marcus's locker. Marcus was fired and charges were pressed, though later dropped. "But he planted that money," Rico said, his voice shaking. "I know he did. Marcus was honest. He had 3 kids. And you?" Evan asked. "When did he go after you?" Rico pulled up his sleeve, revealing the bruises Evan had seen before. They'd faded to yellow-green, but new ones had appeared, fresher, darker. 3 weeks ago. I asked about the meat too many times. Customers were complaining to me, and I asked if we could access the storage for one order. Just one. Trevor waited until closing, then Rico's breath hitched. He shoved me against the freezer door. Told me if I ever questioned his authority again, I'd end up like Marcus. Fired and unemployed. You filed a report? He wrote it himself. Made me sign it. Said if I changed my story, he'd fire me for filing a false report. Evan's hands clenched into fists. Every word made him angrier, but he kept his voice calm. Rico, what if I told you there was a way to stop him? To protect yourself and everyone else here? There isn't. He's got someone in corporate protecting him. I don't know who, but calls get buried, complaints disappear. He's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable, Evan said firmly. But I need your help. I need you to trust me. Rico stared at him, suspicion and hope warring in his eyes. Who are you, really? You're not just some random guy looking for work. Before Evan could answer, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Trevor's voice rang out. Rico! Where the hell are you? We've got orders backing up. Rico stood immediately, fear replacing everything else. I have to go. Wait. I can't. Rico moved toward the door, then paused and looked back. If you really want to help, don't end up like Jessica or Marcus. Just be careful. He disappeared into the kitchen. Evan sat alone in the prep area, his mind racing. He had the pieces now. The full picture. But he needed evidence that would hold up, video, documents, something corporate and law enforcement couldn't ignore. And he needed to move fast. Because the longer Trevor operated, the more people got hurt. Evan pulled out his phone and opened his messages to his COO. Tomorrow night. Be ready. This ends Sunday night. The final shift of Evan's undercover operation. He'd spent the entire day coordinating. His COO had arranged for corporate security to be on standby at a hotel 2 blocks away. His lawyer had prepared documentation. The investigator had delivered the full surveillance package, photos, financial records, video of the food truck exchanges. Everything was ready. Except the one piece that mattered most, catching Trevor in the act. Evan arrived at 10 p.m., his phone tucked in his shirt pocket with the camera lens barely visible. He'd practiced the positioning a dozen times. The angle was perfect for recording anything that happened in the kitchen and storage areas. Rico was already there, looking marginally better after a day off. When he saw Evan, something unreadable flickered across his face. Didn't think you'd come back, Rico said quietly. I told you. I'm not going anywhere. Trevor emerged from his office at 10:30, clipboard in hand, running through his usual inspection routine. He paused when he saw Evan. You're punctual. I like that. Trevor's smile was all teeth. Marcus called in sick, so it's just you three tonight. Rico, you're on grill. New guy, you're on dishes and prep. I'll handle the front until the rush dies. The rush never came. Only 5 customers between 11 and midnight. The restaurant felt like a tomb, quiet, cold, waiting. At 11:45 p.m., Trevor locked the front door and flipped the sign to show their limited late-night menu. Then he walked to the reinforced storage door with his keys. Evan positioned himself at the dish station, angling his body so his phone camera had a clear view. He started the recording. Trevor unlocked the door and went inside. Evan could hear him moving things, the scrape of metal pans, the rustle of plastic wrap. After 2 minutes, Trevor emerged carrying 3 large aluminum pans covered with foil. Premium pulled pork. At least 40 pounds. Trevor carried them to the back prep area, out of sight from the main kitchen. Evan kept washing dishes, watching from the corner of his eye. At 12:10 a.m., the back door opened. Dax walked in like he owned the place, expensive jacket, confident stride, carrying empty coolers. He nodded at Trevor, not even bothering to hide his presence. Right on time, Trevor said. Always am. You got the good stuff tonight? Prime cut. Smoked perfect. Your customers are going to love it. Evan's heart pounded. This was it. The smoking gun. He adjusted slightly, making sure the phone captured both men clearly. They worked quickly, transferring meat from pans to coolers. Trevor moved with practiced efficiency while Dax handled the logistics. Same rate as last time? Dax asked. Yeah. 300 for this batch. Fair. You got the brisket for next week? Should have it. Corporate sent a big shipment Friday. Idiots don't even check the inventory properly. They both laughed. Evan's hand tightened on the dish he was holding. Calling corporate idiots. Bragging about stealing from the company Evan had built from nothing. The rage was almost overwhelming, but he forced himself to stay calm. Keep recording. Get everything. Dax sealed the coolers. All right, we're good. I'll hit you up Tuesday for the next. A metal tray crashed to the floor. The sound was deafening in the quiet kitchen. Evan looked down, horrified. His elbow had caught the edge of a prep tray, sending it and 6 glasses shattering across the tile. Trevor's head snapped toward him. What the hell? Evan's mind raced. Sorry, my hand slipped. But Trevor was already moving, his eyes suspicious. He walked toward Evan, studying him with that predatory focus. You're awfully clumsy tonight. Trevor stopped 3 feet away. Everything okay? Yeah, just tired. Tired? Trevor's eyes narrowed. You've been here, 3 hours? He stepped closer, invading Evan's space. Or maybe you're distracted. Maybe you're paying attention to things that aren't your business. Dax appeared behind Trevor, hands stuffed in his pockets. We got a problem? I don't know yet. Trevor's voice was soft, dangerous. Let me see your ID. Evan's stomach dropped. What? Your ID. I need to verify your employment documents. Company policy for new hires. It wasn't company policy. Evan had written the policies. Trevor was fishing. It's in my car. Evan lied. Then go get it. Right now. Trevor, come on. I said right now. Trevor's voice cracked like a whip. Or you're fired for insubordination. Your choice. Rico appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide. Trevor, he just dropped a tray. It's not. Did I ask you? Trevor rounded on Rico. Did I ask for your opinion? No, sir, but... Trevor shoved Rico backward. Hard. Rico stumbled, hitting the wall with a grunt. Something inside Evan snapped. That's enough, Evan said, his voice dropping into a tone he rarely used, the voice of someone who owned boardrooms and fired executives. Trevor turned back to him, eyebrows raised. Excuse me? I said that's enough. Evan pulled the phone from his pocket, holding it up. The red recording light blinked steadily. This entire conversation has been recorded. The theft, the exchange, the assault. All of it. The color drained from Trevor's face. Who the hell are you? Evan reached up and removed his glasses. Pulled off the cap. Met Trevor's eyes directly. My name is Evan Miles. I own this restaurant. I own all 47 of them. And you're done. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Trevor lunged. Trevor's fist came at Evan's face, but Evan had been in enough fights growing up to know how to move. He ducked left, and Trevor's momentum carried him into the dish station, his hand slamming into the metal sink with a sickening crack. You son of a... Trevor spun around, cradling his hand, his face twisted with rage and pain. Dax was already moving toward the back door, but Rico, battered, exhausted Rico, stepped into his path. You're not going anywhere, Rico said, his voice shaking but firm. Kid, move, Dax warned. No. Dax shoved Rico aside and burst through the door into the alley. Rico hit the ground hard but was up in seconds, chasing after him. That left Evan alone with Trevor. You think you're smart? Trevor spat, his eyes wild. You think this changes anything? I've got friends in corporate. Real friends. They'll bury this. Bury you. Really? Evan pulled out his phone with his other hand, his personal phone. Let's test that theory. He hit a contact labeled, Corporate Security, and put it on speaker. It rang once. We're 2 minutes out, Mr. Miles. A professional voice answered. Stay safe. Trevor's face went white. No. No, you can't. I've got. Got what? Evan stepped closer, his voice cold. Protection? From who? Because I've spent the last 24 hours auditing every single person in my corporate office. Every email, every call, every connection to this location. You want to know what I found? Trevor backed against the wall, shaking his head. Nothing, Evan continued. No protection. No friends. Just you, running a pathetic theft operation and convincing yourself you were untouchable because nobody caught you for 9 months. You don't understand. Trevor's voice cracked. I needed the money. I've got debts, gambling debts, and they were going to. So you stole from my company? Hurt my employees? Evan's voice rose. You made Rico work 16-hour shifts. You assaulted him. You destroyed people's careers to protect yourself. I never meant. You never meant to get caught. Evan shouted. That's the only thing you regret. The back door burst open. Rico stumbled in, breathing hard. Security's got the other guy. He didn't make it past the parking lot. Behind him, 2 corporate security officers entered, professional, efficient, with the bearing of ex-law enforcement. They took in the scene immediately. Mr. Miles, are you all right? The lead officer asked. I'm fine. He tried to assault me. It's on video. Evan held up his phone. Along with everything else. The theft, the handoff, the confession. Trevor slumped against the wall, all the fight draining out of him. Please. Please, I'll pay it back. All of it. Just don't. Don't what? Press charges? Evan stepped closer, his voice dropping to something quiet and deadly. You terrorized my employees. You made a father afraid to feed his child because speaking up meant losing everything. You stole from a company I built with my own hands. And you think an apology fixes that? Mr. Miles? The security officer interrupted gently. We should secure the scene. Chicago PD is en route. Evan nodded, stepping back. The officers moved in, one of them reading Trevor his rights while securing his wrists with zip ties. Trevor didn't resist. He looked broken, hollow. What about the food truck guy? Evan asked. Secured in the parking lot. He tried to run, but your employee here. The officer nodded at Rico. Got a solid tackle in before we arrived. Evan turned to Rico, who was leaning against the doorframe, his shirt torn and a fresh scrape on his cheek. You okay? I couldn't let him get away, Rico said, his voice barely above a whisper. After everything. I just couldn't. You did good. Evan walked over, placing a hand on Rico's shoulder. You did really good. Rico's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner. Should have done something. Jessica and Marcus. Hey, Evan's voice was firm but kind. You were protecting your child. There's no shame in that. None. What Trevor did, that's on him, not you. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The second security officer emerged from the back hallway. Sir, we found detailed records in the manager's office. Looks like he's been documenting the transactions. Dates, amounts, everything. Evan almost laughed. He kept records? Looks like he was planning to report it as waste disposal for tax purposes if anyone asked questions. Basically created evidence of his own crimes. Criminals always think they're smarter than they are. Evan muttered. 2 police cars pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. Officers entered through the front, and Evan spent the next 20 minutes explaining the situation, showing them the video evidence, introducing them to Rico and the security team. Trevor was led away in handcuffs, his head down, refusing to look at anyone. Dax followed moments later, demanding his lawyer and threatening lawsuits that everyone knew were empty bluster. When the police finally left with statements and evidence, the restaurant fell quiet. Just Evan, Rico, and the security team remained. Rico sat at one of the dining tables, his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. Evan sat down across from him. Rico. I thought I'd lose everything, Rico whispered. My job, my apartment, my ability to take care of my son. I was so scared. I know. But you came back. You kept coming back. Why? Evan was quiet for a moment. Because this is my responsibility. Every person who works for me, they're my responsibility. When one of my managers abuses that, hurts people, it's my failure too. I should have caught this sooner. You couldn't have known. Maybe not. But I know now. And I'm going to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. 1 week later, Evan stood in the lobby of Miles' barbecue headquarters, watching the morning news on the waiting room TV. The story had broken 3 days ago. Restaurant CEO goes undercover, bust theft ring. The media had eaten it up. His PR team was managing the attention carefully, focusing on the company's commitment to employees rather than the scandal itself. But today wasn't about press. Today was about making things right. His COO, Maria Chen, appeared with a tablet full of reports. The audit's complete. Trevor's operation ran for 9 months exactly. Total theft, $127,000 in inventory. He and Dax split profits roughly 60-40. Dax's food truck cleared about $80,000 in that time using our stolen product. Evan's jaw tightened. Civil suits? Filed yesterday. Criminal charges are proceeding separately. The DA says it's an airtight case, especially with your video evidence. Trevor's lawyer is already pushing for a plea deal. What about the shell company? Dissolved. Bank accounts frozen. We'll recover most of the stolen funds through asset seizure. Maria paused. There's something else. We found the connection you suspected in corporate. Evan looked up sharply. Trevor did have protection? Not protection exactly. Negligence. Our regional manager for Illinois, Craig Hoffman, was supposed to audit that location quarterly. He never did. Just filed paperwork claiming he had. He was taking shortcuts across all 15 of his locations. Fire him. Already done. We're implementing mandatory third-party audits going forward. No more self-reporting. Evan nodded slowly. The system had failed. But systems could be fixed. What about Jessica and Marcus? The employees Trevor destroyed? Maria smiled. Jessica's been offered a shift lead position at our Lincoln Park location with back pay for lost wages. Marcus, the charges against him were formally expunged, and he's been offered an assistant manager role at our Evanston location. Both accepted. Good. Evan felt some of the weight lift from his chest. And the policy changes? Legal approved everything. As of today, no single manager can hold exclusive access to inventory during operating hours. All storage areas require two-person authorization after midnight. We're installing surveillance cameras in all back-of-house areas, and implementing a confidential hotline that reports directly to corporate HR, bypassing regional management. Make sure every employee knows about that hotline. Every single one. Inch. Already being rolled out. Maria glanced at her watch. Car's ready when you are. Rico's expecting you at 2. Inch. Evan grabbed his jacket. Let's not keep him waiting. The Chicago downtown location looked different in daylight. Cleaner, brighter, like something dark had been scrubbed away. Evan walked through the front door, no disguise this time, just himself, and found the entire day shift staff gathered in the dining area. Rico stood near the front, wearing a new shirt. His eyes went wide when he saw Evan. Mr. Miles? Rico said, his voice uncertain. Just Evan is fine. He addressed the whole group. I want to thank you all for your patience this past week. I know the police interviews, the investigations, it's been disruptive. But it was necessary. The staff murmured agreement. Most looked curious, some nervous. This location is going to change. Evan continued. We're implementing new policies company-wide because of what happened here. Better protections for employees. Better oversight. Better communication. What Trevor did should never have been possible, and I take responsibility for the fact that it was. He turned to Rico specifically. But change doesn't happen because of policies. It happens because of people who choose to do the right thing, even when it's terrifying. Rico, can you step forward? Rico hesitated, then moved to stand beside Evan. This man worked 16-hour shifts. He endured assault and intimidation. He watched his coworkers get destroyed and lived in fear of the same happening to him. Evan's voice carried through the room. But when it mattered, when someone finally asked him to trust and tell the truth, he did. He helped stop a criminal operation. He physically prevented a suspect from escaping. He's a hero. Rico's face flushed red. I'm not. You are, Evan said firmly. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Effective immediately, you're promoted to night shift supervisor. That comes with a $15,000 annual raise, full benefits, and a signing bonus to cover any hardship the last 9 months caused you. Rico stared at the envelope like it might disappear. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Rico's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. The staff erupted in applause. Several people hugged Rico, congratulating him. Evan watched, feeling something he rarely allowed himself to feel: pride. Not in himself, but in the people who made his company what it was supposed to be. After the celebration died down, Evan pulled Rico aside. How's your son? He asked. Good. Really good. His daycare called yesterday. He's been singing all week. Don't know why, but the teacher says he seems happy. Rico smiled. Kids can sense things, you know? He knows something changed. Something did change. You're not afraid anymore. No, Rico agreed softly. I'm not. Evan handed him a business card, his personal one. If you ever have problems, anywhere in this company, you call me directly. That number reaches me 24/7. I mean that. Rico looked at the card, then at Evan. Why did you do this? Really? You could have sent corporate security, filed reports, handled it from a distance. Why go undercover yourself? Evan thought about the question. About the years of building his company, the pride he took in it, the responsibility that came with success. Because the moment I stopped caring about the people who work for me, really caring, not just in mission statements and PR, is the moment I stopped deserving this company. He met Rico's eyes. You're not just employees. You're the reason any of this exists. 3 weeks later, the downtown location's revenue had increased by 35%. Word spread about the hero manager and the CEO who'd gone undercover. Customers came specifically to support the location. Local press ran feel-good follow-up stories. But Evan's favorite result wasn't the press or the revenue. It was the email he received from Rico, sent at 2:47 a.m. on a random Tuesday. Mr. Miles, Evan, just finished my first solo night shift as supervisor. Everything went smooth. No locked doors, no fear, just good food and good people. My son asked me today why I smile more. I told him sometimes the right person shows up at the right time. Thank you for being that person. Rico. Evan read it 3 times, then saved it in a folder labeled "Why we do this." Then he got back to work. Because there were 46 other locations out there, and if one manager could go bad, others could too. The fight wasn't over. But at least now, his employees knew someone was watching. Someone who cared. And that made all the difference. The end.